Kylie Ray here, and you are watching Pinfalls and Pixels, where wrestling meets gaming, hosted by Gloppy. Hope you enjoy! Bye!
For decades, professional wrestling has captivated audiences with its spectacle, storytelling, and larger-than-life personalities. But wrestling is not just about the in-ring action. It's about the moments, the entrances, and the emotional highs and lows that keeps fans on the edge of their seats. And one of the most crucial elements of those moments is the music. Wrestling theme songs are an essential part of what makes a superstar truly larger than life. Sometimes the theme song can be the whole reason they're over in the first place. From the opening chords of Hulk Hogan's Real American to the shattering glass of Stone Cold Steve Austin's entrance, music has defined eras, cemented legacies, and created unforgettable memories. The sound of an entrance theme alone could generate an emotional response, a roar of cheers, or a chorus of boos before a single move was even made in the ring. The music was necessary for me as a kid for my figure fed, or even later in life for backyard wrestling. But how did we get here? How did WWF become a powerhouse in the music industry, producing platinum albums and influencing mainstream culture, only to eventually fade into obscurity in this realm? This is the story of WWF the music, its rise to prominence, its dominance in the industry, and the ultimate decline of an era. The story of WWF's involvement in music begins in 1985, at the height of the rock and wrestling connection. Vince McMahon had a vision. Wrestling was no longer just a sport, it was entertainment, and entertainment needed a soundtrack. Thus, the wrestling album was born. Produced by Rick Derringer and featuring contributions from Cyndi Lauper and even Meatloaf, the album was a mix of theme music and original songs performed by the wrestlers themselves. While it didn't set the world on fire in terms of sales, it laid the foundation for WWF's foray into the music industry. The album was conceptually interesting, but it lacked mainstream radio airplay, with none of its singles breaking the top 100. Still, this was an important first step. 2 years later, Piledriver the Wrestling Album 2 followed, taking things up a notch. This time, actual music videos were produced, including the infamous Piledriver song performed by Coco Beware. The cover of the album featuring Hulk Hogan in a hard hat was instantly recognizable to wrestling fans. This album gave us legendary themes like Demolitions and Honky Tonk Man's self-titled track, which would follow him throughout his career. The albums were campy and full of charm, but they were also a reflection of the era, bright, colorful, and larger than life. And while they may not have been commercial juggernauts, they planted the seeds for what was to come. By the mid-90s, WWF fully embraced theme music as an integral part of a superstar's presentation. No longer were themes just simple jingles, now they were carefully crafted soundscapes that defined the character. In 1995, WWF Full Metal the album was released, marking the first entry in the WWF the Music series. While it wasn't an overwhelming success, it set the stage for what was to come. More importantly, it solidified Jim Johnston's role as the musical genius behind some of wrestling's most iconic themes. Johnston had been working with the WWF for years by this point, but it was in the late 90s that he truly shined. His compositions weren't just background music, they told stories. The eerie gongs of The Undertaker's entrance, the aggressive drum beats of The Rock's theme, and the unmistakable sound of Stone Cold's glass-shattering, all were his creations. Johnston didn't just compose music, he created soundtracks for characters. His themes were an extension of a wrestler's identity, often becoming just as important as their promos or in-ring work. The late 90s were the golden era for wrestling music. This was when WWF the Music albums became legitimate bestsellers, breaking into mainstream and turning wrestling themes into cultural staples. I still remember the first wrestling CD I ever owned. WWF The Music Volume 3, which was released in 1998. There was nothing like tearing off the plastic, popping the disc into my CD player, and hearing the iconic themes of that era blasting through my speakers. This album featured the Rock's theme If You Smell, marking the shift from the bland, smiling Rocky Maivia to the charismatic, trash-talking megastar we all know. His theme wasn't just an entrance song, it was a declaration. The Undertaker's theme on this album was like a precursor to the Ministry version, deepening his character's supernatural aura. That slow, haunting bell gave his persona a mythical presence that still stands out today. Now, as a juggalo, one of my favorite surprises was Insane Clown Posse's theme for The Oddities. Seeing them in WWF even briefly was surreal. Their contribution to the music helped make this album stand out, and it felt like a hidden gem. By WWF The Music Volume 4, which was released in 1999, WWF had perfected the formula. The album debuted at number 4 on the Billboard 200, proving just how massive wrestling music had become. The highlights were legendary: Chris Jericho's Break the Walls Down, Triple H's My Time, and The Undertaker's Ministry of Darkness theme. As the 2000s began, WWF experimented with different musical styles, leading to one of the most unique releases in wrestling music history, WWF Aggression. This album took some of the most iconic entrance themes and reimagined them as hardcore rap tracks, performed by some of the biggest names in hip-hop at the time. Now, this album was one of my personal favorites, especially as a lifelong hip-hop fan. Run DMC's remix of the DX theme was a standout, transforming it into something even more aggressive and rebellious. Then you had Method Man absolutely murdering the Rock's theme, and the entire album felt like WWF trying to further cement its place in pop culture. While it wasn't a traditional WWF The Music release, it was a sign that the wrestling music had officially crossed over into other genres, and was something that could stand on its own outside of the wrestling bubble. I kinda wish they would bring this one back. I kind of imagine Smirk doing the theme for The Rock. WWF The Music Volume 5 was released in 2001, and you could say this was the last great album before the company transitioned from WWF to WWE. This one had Too Cool's theme Turn It Up, but it also had The Rock's hilarious song Pie, featuring Slick Rick. If you haven't heard this song, I highly recommend you go check it out right after you finish this video. It's really The Rock at his best. Other highlights on this included Latino Heat and Dead Man Walking. The album was a massive commercial success, reaching number 2 on the Billboard 200. After the success of WWF Aggression, the WWE went all in on the idea of working with mainstream artists to produce entrance themes. This led to WWF Forcible Entry, which was full of hard rock and metal remixes of themes. Now, this was my all-time favorite wrestling album. I even remember ordering it from the commercial on TV where you had to send like check or money orders. WWE worked with a ton of bands that they had already partnered with for pay-per-views and hype videos, so it only made sense. Limp Bizkit's Rollin' had already been used as The Undertaker's entrance theme. And say what you want about Creed, but their song My Sacrifice being used in those Desire hype videos was absolute perfection. WWE knew how to create emotional video packages, and this song elevated those moments to another level. This was also the last major WWF album before the company was forced to rebrand as WWE, marking the end of an era. With WWE transitioning into a new era, they decided to release WWE Anthology in 2002, a massive 3-disc collection celebrating the best themes from different time periods. Now, this is one I remember getting for Christmas. This album was split into 3 parts: the Federation years covering the 80s and early 90s, the Attitude Era, which was the absolute peak of wrestling music, and Now, which featured themes from the then modern era of 2002. Real American, Sexy Boy, Glass Shatters, Break It Down, No Chance in Hell, every legendary theme you could think of was here. However, as much as this album was a celebration, it also felt like WWE looking backward rather than forward. This was right around the time when wrestling themes started to feel less inspired, and WWE was leaning more on nostalgia than innovation. One of the most surprising moments in wrestling music history to me was the debut of a young artist who would later become one of the biggest names in the music industry, Nicki Minaj. Back then, she wasn't the global superstar that we know today, but her vocals made an appearance on Theme Addict, WWE The Music Volume 6 in 2004. Nicki Minaj, credited as Nicki Mirage, provided vocals on Victoria's theme song Don't Mess With. At the time, no one could have predicted that this unknown artist would go on to become one of the biggest names in hip-hop. It's pretty wild to think that a future superstar made her debut on a WWE entrance theme before taking over the rap world. While WWF The Music hit its peak in the late 90s and early 2000s, changes in the industry led to a decline in the impact of wrestling entrance music. As the WWE evolved, so did its approach to themes, and unfortunately, much of what made the music feel special started to fade. One of the biggest blows to wrestling music came in 2017 when Johnston, the mastermind behind so many legendary themes, was released from WWE. His departure marked the official end of an era. His themes had emotion, personality, and identity, something that WWE's modern music struggles to replicate. WWE had already begun transitioning to CFO in the early 2010s, and while they created some fantastic themes like Shinsuke Nakamura's entrance, Bobby Roode's Glorious, and Finn Balor's theme song, the music had become more streamlined. It was polished and catchy, but it lacked the raw personality Johnston's music had. Then came the introduction of Def Rebel, and this was where things really went south. Today, most of WWE's entrance themes feel interchangeable. Gone are the days when you can hear the first few notes of a song and instantly recognize the superstar. One of the biggest problems with the modern WWE music is that it lacks build-up. During the Attitude Era in early 2000s, entrance themes had dramatic intros that set the tone immediately. Think about the glass-shattering and Stone Cold's theme, The Rock's iconic If You Smell, or Triple H's Time to Play the Game. Those first few seconds made the audience react instantly. Now, many themes start with generic instrumentals that don't give the wrestlers the same instant connection with the crowd. The impact of wrestling music on pop culture has also declined. During the Attitude Era, you'd hear wrestling themes everywhere. Looking back, WWF The Music was more than just a collection of albums. It was a movement. The rise of wrestling music mirrored the rise of professional wrestling itself. These themes just weren't background noise. They were essential storytelling tools that elevated superstars and made entrances just as exciting as the matches themselves. While there are still a few bright spots here and there, nothing will ever compare to the magic of the late 90s and early 2000s, when wrestling themes were must-have tracks. For those of us who lived through the golden era, these themes are timeless. They bring back memories of watching Monday Night Raw, playing WWE video games, or even blasting the CDs in the car with friends. Or, even like I said, your figure federation. What are your favorite WWF entrance themes? Do you miss the days of Jim Johnston's legendary compositions? Let me know down in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. This is Glocky, and I'll catch you on the next one.